Hello folks. This is going to be a relaxed fit episode. Let me take these headphones off because I'm hearing echo. This is going to be a relaxed fit, folks, because I use the spare time that I have during the week to bring together all of the different sources of information to present, a decent full show, but I realized that I can't do that every week. It's going to have to be every 2 weeks. So once every 2 weeks in between, I'm just going to do a relaxed fit. And I think actually this is more my kind of speed anyway. So I'm just going to have smoking a beer and have a chat with you about something that I wouldn't say has been on my mind. I'd say I can't ignore it. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming up. I could just get rid of 1 or 2 people and then I don't have to hear about it again. But no, these are my friends. And I could unsubscribe from Betwixt, but he's hilarious and he always makes very good observations. And I think anyone who is in the quote-unquote scene, the Irish nationalist scene, will know exactly what I'm about to talk about, and that is Shilna Éireann, or Shilna Éireann, irishpatriots.com, the Irish Patriot, Niall McConnell. If I seem a little out of breath, it's because I've been fucking cycling for a good solid hour. So here's a pro tip, folks. Don't do intense cardio exercise and then sit down and open up a beer because it goes straight to your head. Anyway, right, Shilna Éireann, Niall McConnell. I'm making it very clear who I'm speaking about here because it seems that some people, and I'm not going to name any names because I'm not an asshole like these people are afraid to speak up because they are being, I guess, indirectly threatened with legal action. At least that's what I hear secondhand. I haven't tuned into these guys' YouTube channel because I just don't have the fucking time or energy. Like I said, it's not like this was on my mind. I just can't avoid it. So it's gotten so ridiculous that I have to actually say something about it. I've seen this kind of shit happen before, again and again and again, not in the nationalist circle of Ireland, because the nationalist circles are, well, in their infant stages. But I've seen this happen in the Patriot movement in America, the conspiracy theorist movement, if you want to call it that, the truth movement, which I don't know which label for that I despise the most. They're both misleading, but I'm rambling. I'm just sick of seeing history repeat itself, and I've come to the realization that I can't do anything about it. I can speak my mind and leave it at that. And it sometimes gets to the point where it's gotten so bad that, okay, I guess the old hats have to roll up their sleeves and get down and dirty and point out some bullshit. Before I get down to it, I have to give a shout out to one of my teachers. Indirectly a teacher, really. He wasn't trying to teach me this lesson. Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux from, I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi everybody, it's Stefan Molyneux from Freedom Main Radio. Thank you so...
God, I hate that fucking voice. I fucking hate that voice. It gives me douche chills. It does. He taught me the lesson that if you call yourself something enough times and over a long enough period of time, then you actually become that thing. He has called himself a philosopher for a decade, maybe a little longer, and he would have been a flash in the pan if he wasn't so damn good at what he did. He didn't lock himself into one demographic on the internet what he did was comment on everything that has ever come up in the alternative scenes on the internet. He's touched on parenting, anarchism, different political scenarios, all of it. Fuck it, even what celebrities are doing. Something I saw in his channel, something like Gwyneth Paltrow, something like Goop. I don't know, I don't pay attention to this shit anymore. Like I said, history repeats itself. I yawn and get on with my day. But he has persisted. And now, I listened to an esteemed journalist today, someone I had a lot of respect for, and I still do, but it suffered a little. Colin Flaherty mentioned, in passing, oh, I'm not such a big philosophy guy, maybe you should talk to Stefan Molyneux about this, he's the philosopher. No, he fucking isn't. He is a sophist. He talks shit to sound wise. A philosopher is open to having their ideas interrogated, and they stick to some kind of a process through which they come to truth. There's, for them, certain immutable hurdles that a proposition must make it across in order for it to be true. And he has always felt free to impose his process of finding truth on other people. But when someone would come to challenge him, then he would pull all sorts of tricks, all sorts of sophist and NLP and basically psychological assault in order to avoid this challenge or avoid detection as a fucking con man. And this is what I mean about history repeating itself. I've seen it over and over again. And here now we have it with Niall McConnell. Because, McConnell, that's a name, right? I had no idea. Never heard it before in my life. But I was willing to just let people sort this out for themselves until this bloody fundraiser that he's set up on his Seolna Éireann, IrishPatriots.com website. Legal fund. It's time to drain the bog of Irish politics. Are you with me? This guy is a very good salesman. He knows how to do his calls to action. He knows how to make it a personal thing so that people feel included, feel like they're in something that is actually moving, something that will actually make a difference. It's actually, I have to applaud it. He knows his shit. There's definitely an aspect of fake it until you make it in any kind of business. If you, especially online, if you make it look like your business is already thriving and people are already interested in it, well, that will just bring more people into the fold because they think, well, other people trust this, other people are on board. And also there's the social aspect of, yes, I'm a part of the winning group. I'm a part of a social circle where I could possibly meet other people, that share my worldview, that are aligned with me in some way, or someone that I can shag and hook up with and build a family with even. It goes that far. So, without rambling too much, let's read this. He's got a picture underneath the headline of the Four Courts, because he's going to go to the Supreme Court to to sue these people who are insulting him online. Basically, the fucking Supreme Court, right? This is hilarious, but it's not. It's also quite sad because people can't see straight through this shit. Now it gets worse. Let's read from it. Since first launching Seolna Éireann in January, we have been on a roller coaster ride of a journey, or a roller coaster of a journey. The whole of Ireland has been astonished by the emergence of a real Catholic nationalist Gaelic party. I fail to see how it's a party. Sorry. I fail to see how Ireland has been astounded by Seolna Éireann. What's being done here? Have you gotten onto RTE? Have you gotten into the Dáil? Have you gotten into the Seanad? Have you staged massive protests that caught people's attention? No. None of these things have happened. It's been said that, to put into perspective the condition of, say, the National Party, I think it was the guys at SMIC FM that said this, that if you went up to a person on the street and asked them, do you know who the National Party are? Do you know who Justin Barrett is? They will likely say no. And if they say yes, it's a rare occurrence, because they're either in the echo chamber of the National Party themselves, or they're in the echo chamber of the far left, who think that the National Party are, this evil group of fascists that are going to take over the country if they're not stopped. But outside of that, nobody knows who the National Party is. This applies even more for Seolna Éireann. I'm just fucking confused how someone can read this sentence and not just laugh at it and immediately close the page. Okay, so full disclosure, I haven't read this whole thing. I've read the next 2 paragraphs, or the next 2 headlines. World-class technology, a first in Irish nationalist politics. In just 4 hectic months, we have managed to acquire the Nation Builder digital campaign tool, which was used by President Trump, Macron, Boris Johnson, the Scottish National Party, and Sinn Féin in the past. We have also managed to fight our first general election and immediately launched the first Irish nationalist newspaper in generations. We are now working on issue 3 and 70,000 copies. Okay, there's a few things in there. Nation Builder tool, campaign tool, for what? What are you doing with this? It kind of smacks of what Gript were up to, or still are up to, using the same company that is owned by Cambridge Analytica, or which owns Cambridge Analytica. I'm not sure how these corporations are nested, but it sounds like you're fiddling about with people's sensitive data that, because of just the general ignorance of people as they use the internet, as they use their credit cards or their super value club cards or whatever, that they're leaking to these massive corporations. And what are you going to do with this Nation Builder thing? It kind of sounds like you're about to manipulate people. So let's move on. Okay, first general election. Yeah, you're not a party. You are a person, Niall, who ran for the general election, and you didn't do all that well at all, actually. And not even for a person that has run for their first election. So that's just blowing things out of proportion right there. Now, the first nationalist newspaper in Ireland in generations. Let me hold you up on that. What you have is a fanzine. You have a magazine. You don't have a paper. And I would ask you, Niall, what is it that distinguishes a magazine from a paper? Is it how many copies you make? Because I'm wondering, like, where are these alleged tens of thousands of copies going to? I don't know anyone who has gotten your paper. Actually, I know someone who has signed up to your website to just, to see what's going on, and I don't think they've gotten your paper. Actually, I should ask this fella, but he's not online. I think that's just a terrible insult to our forefathers, really. Because I know that my grandfather's generation in Northern Ireland, they had magazines. And yeah, okay, it didn't come out of a press. You know, it wasn't a broadsheet. It was usually just a few pages bound together, you know, DIY at home. But they made several copies and they distributed, you know, IRA, you know. And they weren't just lads running around with fucking guns and bombs and causing an issue for the authorities. They were thinkers. They shared news in the grassroots way, and this has always been a thing in the world, not just in Ireland. People have always made magazines, so I don't know what you're trying to say here. You made a magazine, wow, tens of thousands of copies, okay, where are those going? I think I know where those are going, so I'll get back to that point soon. Recently, we have launched Irish food aid and community care initiatives across the whole 32 counties. So all good and down to the incredible level of help given to us by you, our members and supporters. Thank you. Did I read that wrong, or is that just bad grammar? Irish food aid. Okay, so I remember Niall talking about this. Now you got 10 kilos or kilotons or something of potatoes and an equal amount of onions. And he was talking about how great this is, and I was thinking, hang on a minute. You're getting equal parts potatoes and equal part onions. What kind of meal do you suppose people are going to make with that? I'm so divorced from the farm to plate network. I don't know how long potatoes and onions last, you know, the fresh sort that you get in the shops. But once I take them home, they don't last that very long. So how much are you actually really accumulating, and how much are you distributing? Because we see videos up online, and I'm not saying anything new. This has been pointed out by a certain YouTuber that, oh yeah, you gave this person 4 potatoes. Wow. You know, not like 4 sacks of potatoes, just 4 potatoes. It's not really community care. And it has been pointed out by the Irish Megaphone, and he had Niall on his stream, and he didn't really fight his corner all that well. I know he probably thought that he was letting Niall give his side of the story, but really what he was doing was he was letting Niall just twist reality into an unrecognizable knot so that he could just walk away with some kind of illusion that he's defended himself. But it's been pointed out by Irish Megaphone on that stream earlier, before Niall came on, that you're going around to vulnerable people's homes and having contact with them during a pandemic. You know, there are people out there that are doing this already. You know, the Gardaí, as far as I've heard anyway, are doing this. They're, you know, doing shopping for the elderly. People in the community are already doing this. Yet this Irish food aid requires people to travel across the country to different counties. I'm not big on this whole thing about a pandemic that's going to kill us all. But if that is the case, because most people believe that to be the case, then why are you doing this? You're just bringing a virus all across the country and then handing it to the most vulnerable people in the community. It's ridiculous. Now, here comes the, the cult leader thing where, oh yeah, we've got the truth here. we're building something really great here. And guess what, guys? Going into Jim Jones mode, the U.S. military, the British military or something, are encamped outside of our compound, and they're going to kill us all. So let's drink the Kool-Aid. Our meteoric rise has triggered a massive backlash, as expected. A massive backlash. A few YouTubers saying, hang on a minute, is called a massive backlash in Niall's little world. God damn. Everything is just so overblown in this text, right? However, our incredible rise and achievement in just 4 months has so worried the state that they have triggered the most ferocious attack on us using their paid stooges and useful idiots. Look, nobody is working around the clock to talk shit about Niall and his little club. Nobody. There is no concerted effort to bring down Siobhan Aaron. It's just not happening. And I know for sure that I'm not a paid stooge. I'm neither a useful idiot. And I'm pretty sure that goes for the other YouTubers and folks in the nationalist scene. Let's continue. It has been relentless and potentially very disruptive to our many projects and initiatives. Therefore, we have no choice but to fight back using the courts, and that is what we are now doing. People online saying things that are critical of Niall, inquisitive, not... See, I think he's trying to go for the libel thing here. Oh, these guys were libelous towards me. They were saying I was committing this crime. When really, no, maybe someone has maybe inched over the line through just natural speaking, like I'm speaking here, like legally, maybe that the line was just kind of breached a little bit. But that even wouldn't stand up in court, really. Certainly wouldn't go to the Supreme Court, I'll tell you that. Fucking prick, idiot. But so these guys just saying things on their YouTube channels is potentially very disruptive. Folks, if you're one of Niall's people and you're reading this and you don't think that there's something seriously fucking wrong with this picture, I go get help, like professional help. Okay, let's go on. I do not want to take this path, but I will not allow these dark forces to defame the party, our fantastic members, or to destroy our fledgling movement. Okay, again, Niall, you're not a party. You're not a party until you register at the Dáil. That's the rules. Okay? Just like Anti-Corruption Ireland is not a party, it's a brand. Siobhan Aaron is a brand. Simple. We must nip them in the bud. Because nobody's allowed to be critical or anything. No, we're just supposed to remain quiet. We have to be nipped in the bud. This was the war cry of one of our detractors. Oh, right, okay, there's quotation marks around this. Really, war cry of one of our detractors. Who? Do you want to point them out? So we know that unless we seek justice in court, these attacks will not only continue, but escalate. So now we will nip them in the bud using the law and the courts. Oh, wow. Money. This is what it all comes down to. Okay, so he's asking amount: €5, €10, €25, €50, €100, €250, €500, €1,000, other. Okay, well, let's just, for the crack, €5. your info, email, first name, last name, country, address line 1, address line 2, address line 3, city, postcode, phone, and then the little checkbox, send email updates. And below, secured via Nation Builder. Okay, it should worry you folks that just for, well, a €5 fucking pledge or something, you're supposed to hand over your email, your first and second name, and your address and your phone number. You have to be very, very fucking careful who you give this kind of information to. I speak from experience and the experience of others, because I and some friends of mine have signed up to Identity Ireland, and I have it on good authority that when the shift between Identity Ireland and the National Party occurred, then all of that membership information was just transferred to the National Party, which is not legal, not something I'm going to complain about or seek justice over or anything. It's really, you step onto a firing range and you get shot. Well, who's to blame, right? But you got to be fucking careful, folks, who you give information to, because it's rumored that a mole in the National Party leaked the information that originally was meant to be held by Identity Ireland in confidence, and that was leaked to a certain party in England, which in turn was leaked to Hope Not Hate in England. So if you did what I did a few years ago, it's very possible that your personal data is in the hands of fucking radical left-wingers. Your name, your address at the time, etc. And I do actually remember, now that I think of it. Oh, fuck. Wow, when a penny just drops on you? I also host, I put up video essays on Irish Identitarian YouTube channel. And I did a piece on Israel. Most people in the nationalist circles, for some reason, love Israel. I don't. I don't have any particular love for them. I don't have any particular hate for them. I'm just willing to call a potato a potato. If it's a fucking potato, I'll say that's a potato. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I will criticize any government, any group of people who have done something to justify that criticism. So, on Twitter, I was attacked by a Zionist. I don't know where from. Can't remember those details, but the person, by seeing my name on the Irish Identitarian channel, said, "Oh yeah, you from this place in Ireland," and mentioned the town that I had previously lived in. And frankly, fucking kind of scared me, really. Made me think, wait, how did this person know where I live? Could it have been because this data was leaked to a group like Hope Not Hate? Yeah, I'm just throwing out theories here. Right, where was I going from here? Okay, so let's go back to this whole 70,000 copies of issue 3, because there were, according to Niall, thousands and thousands of copies made of issues 1 and 2. Where are they going? Well, I first heard of Niall. He had one video there in, what was it, November or something, that kind of spread far and wide on the social medias. It was a fella from Northern Ireland speaking on how we should all join the National Party or some shite like that. So I think that's where he got his initial burst, and then from there grew steadily for the rest of the year, and then had his turn towards the dark side. I thought nothing of the lad, really. I would occasionally see his videos showing up in the recommendation on YouTube, and honestly, they were live streams, so they just went on for hours, so I didn't even bother clicking into them. I mean, not went on for hours, just that they, oh wow, okay, a 3-hour stream. Yeah, do I have that time? I also just got douche chills from the guy. He kind of freaked me out. Something about it just didn't sit right with me. Certain YouTuber that I think we're all familiar with when we're talking about Shilna Aaron pointed out that he had a similar kind of feeling, but his was more articulated. You know, he didn't like the tricolor and all that shit, and it as he put it, a touristy gift shop kind of look. So I avoided it. And then I heard that the aforementioned YouTuber taking the piss out of this guy, and I was thinking, wow, is there something wrong here? So I look up videos to see if anyone else is criticizing Shilna Aaron, and I find this 5-minute video of this American guy, you know, just a guy in front of his webcam, not a whole lot of subscribers, but he was basically shilling for Shilna Aaron, saying, oh, you know, you guys, you know, this guy's really making a difference in Ireland, you know, please go over to his channel and support him. And I was thinking, wow, okay, the Americans are on board with this guy. Now, it's been pointed out that a lot of these YouTubers, specifically Gran Torino, has a lot of American watchers and listeners, and that's where a lot of the money is coming from. So I'm thinking, is that where a lot of these, I don't even know what his magazine is called, Shilna Aaron magazine, is that where most of them are going? See, there's a problem I have with the Irish Americans. They don't know anything. They're just like other Americans. They're just like everyone else, basically, outside of the island of Ireland. They don't really know what's going on here. Just like we don't know a whole lot about the internal politics of France or Sweden or South Africa or something. If we do know something, it's because, well, we're just those kind of people that we have a vested interest in a particular ideology, and we've seen it either succeed or fail in that country, but we don't know the real day-to-day politics, the internal wranglings. And that's the same with the Irish Americans when it comes to Ireland. It kind of reminds me of the guys who would be standing on streets in fucking Boston and Chicago, I think, as well, with the buckets, you know, on the street collecting money for the IRA. And that's just basically it. They're collecting money for the IRA, and that's as much as is known to the average person walking along the street and thinking, yeah, you know, I think I'll give some money to my fatherland to buy some guns. Okay, you know, put in a few cent or whatever in the bucket. But which IRA are you supporting there? Because it's not just the IRA, there's competing groups with different ideologies. So when an American hears that there's an uprising going on back in the homeland, then they think, yeah, you know, we've got to get in on this and we've got to put money into it because, you know, this is where we've come from. And it's a very noble thing, but it's out of ignorance, purely out of ignorance. So we need to be careful about the diaspora funding people back here at home, because there's a lot more of them over there than there are of us here. And like I said, they're not privy to the day-to-day internal politics of this country. So if Shilna Éireann is actually as big as Niall says it is, it's because it involves a lot of the diaspora, and they're not actually in the country. So, which would explain why they haven't registered as a party at the Dáil, because there's a certain number of members you need, and they have not yet gotten to that stage to register. Which, you know, you'll say, okay, well, you know, 4 months isn't that long. Of course, yeah, but to say that in 4 months you have a gigantic party in a little island like Ireland, where, I'm sorry, but most people just fucking aren't interested in nationalism. They aren't interested in their heritage. And they're definitely not interested in anything slightly more right than right of centre. And I would even say that it's still rare to come across a person who is right of centre and will actually come out and do something about it, which, you know, give money to some kind of initiative or something, or put their boots out on the street and do something for such a movement. So that's my little rant. Let's see, how far are we in? 45 minutes just now, and I'm sure you're going to look at the timing on this podcast or video or however you're viewing it and think, no, actually, it just says 20 minutes, and that's because I cut out a bunch of shit. Because I'm... Like I said, don't do cardio workout and then sit down and have a beer, because it goes straight to your head, man. Something I need to have my say in as well is the throwing under the bus of the National Party, Gran Torino, etc., etc., by Niall McConnell. Now, we all should know, if we put on our critical thinking caps, when Niall threw those guys under the bus on the Irish Megaphones stream, it's totally diversion. That was him getting away from answering the reasonable questions that were posed to him. Now, I will say, and I need to remind people, if you haven't heard me speak on the National Party before, that I'm no fan of the National Party. I have my criticisms of them. But one thing I will say is that they have never actually made any kind of a donation drive. They have a yearly membership fee of €75, and that's it. My sources, and I trust them, and even people like Smick FM have came out and said basically the same thing. These guys don't go asking people for money. If they do get money out of their membership beyond the membership fee, then that's totally voluntary. The members have decided that this is a horse they want to back, and they give money to them. That's grand. Now, I will say the National Party are bad at spending their funds. They waste it on stupid campaigns that are totally tone deaf and will not make any kind of dent in the national psyche. But there's nothing to suggest whatsoever that they've misappropriated funds. As for the YouTubers like Gran Torino that he threw under the bus, well, I don't know. Maybe they do misappropriate funds. Smick FM pointed out that Gran Torino is losing weight, and that might be for a certain reason. a certain reason involving substances. But that's all speculation, and I will actually say, to give Niall a little bit of something, a few crumbs, I will say, yeah, okay, well, let's actually look into the finances behind the National Party. Let's ask Gran Torino, because I know he's not keeping receipts. Or maybe he is. Maybe he's got pristine books. I don't know. Is he paying tax? It's big questions. These are the questions we need to ask. Sure, okay, but Niall, you're the one constantly begging for money. And I don't mind, Niall. Please, just, put me on your hit list of people that you want to bring to the Supreme Court. Oh, the Supreme Court. God, oh my God. People are so silly. Well, of course he had to put the four courts up there on his page, because, I mean, we're talking about small claims courts here, so if you put up this picture of a modern building, people will be like, okay, what's that got to do with anything? Time to move on. Let's just move on to something a little bit different. Let's talk about the courts. Let's talk about Gemma O'Doherty and John Waters taking the Irish government to court, I guess. Frankly, I have not been following these people at all. I haven't been following their case at all, because, life's just too fucking short, man. But I gather that their little stint in the Supreme Court, because, that's where you go to the Supreme Court for, is when you're challenging a law and its constitutionality. I gather that it didn't go very well. So what they are going to do, essentially, is bring their case to the European Court of Human Rights. Because the truth is that the Constitution... Oh wait, let me back up. If you're unaware, Gemma O'Doherty, John Waters, they're taking the Irish government to task because they believe that the lockdown is unconstitutional. I would agree that it's against basic human rights. I would agree that it's unnecessary, and it's actually one of the biggest cons and crimes that this country has seen in centuries, basically. But I wouldn't agree that it's unconstitutional, right? So they're going to bring this to the European Court of Human Rights. That's what I heard anyway in their speech coming out of the Supreme Court there. And there's a lot of people and they've brought these people on social media, they're all going off on something that Ben Gilroy said when he was trying to make the challenge that, yes, indeed, we do have rights of bodily autonomy and freedom of movement in this country, and I'll get into what his excuse was. Right, so we have Article 40 of the Constitution here. 41. All citizens shall, as human persons, be held equal before the law. The only thing that maybe could be said to support our bodily autonomy and freedom of movement is 44. No citizen shall be deprived of his personal liberty, save in accordance with law. So personal liberty, I imagine, because of the preceding chapters about unlawful detention, means the ability to move about and conduct one's own affairs, right? But we have these three weasel words here, which are all throughout our Constitution: accordance with law. save in accordance with law. Well, sorry, but it's perfectly constitutional that they have invoked emergency powers from the Constitution, and now you don't have personal liberty. So let's go down to where people are quoting Ben Gilroy, right? Now, he said that we do have these rights of bodily autonomy and free movement because of these words that are there in the Constitution: inalienable, imprescriptible, and antecedent, and superior to all positive law. The problem is that this is in Article 41, the family. 41.1, the state recognizes the family as the natural, primary, and fundamental unit group of society, and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. Now that's a powerful little paragraph right there, but it's not talking about individual rights, it's talking about the rights of the family. Like, it's great and everything, it's wonderful because there's, this can possibly be used to overturn a lot of horrible shit that this government can do, but it cannot overturn their invasion of our personal rights to movement and bodily autonomy, because it's talking about the family. Everything else, when it comes to the individual, is all about law. You've got to follow the state policy. You've got to follow the laws as an individual. However, your family, that's a different situation altogether, because it's hearkening back to the Breton law times where the family was the law, because the family owned land, and issues between individuals were mediated on a family level. If I was the son of a chieftain and I had a problem with another son of a family over there, yonder, then the Breton would bring us together, and if something can't be worked out between us, then our fathers will become involved because they're the leader of the family. So this is what the Constitution is hearkening back to. Individual rights in the Constitution just do not exist. So that is why O'Doherty and Waters will have to go to the EU, which, I'm sorry, but that's terrible news. And if they do that, they may as well be pissing in the face of the Irish people. It's like if things went totally wrong in The Lord of the Rings and Mordor took over all of Middle Earth. I don't know my Lord of the Rings all that well. If Sauron got his way and the hobbits had a problem, they were allowed to run things to some capacity on their own, and the hobbits had a problem with their leadership. Then they go to the courts up in Mordor to force their little place, if they have to force Hobbiton to give them their rights back. That's what we're talking about here. That's what Waters and O'Doherty are trying to do. And it has been done so many times before, where Irish people have gone to the EU Court of Human Rights and totally went over the heads of our government. You could say that had to be done, sure, but fuck, man. It doesn't bode well. It is chipping away at our sovereignty every time that has to be done. When really, in an ideal world, i.e. not going to fucking happen, we should take the country back and rewrite this constitution. We shouldn't be worshipping it like fucking gimps. There was a certain ideology at the time going around amongst our forefathers, and it has informed this fucking shit show of a constitution where the individual just doesn't exist. The individual is in service to the republic, you know? The socialist republic. Now, a penny just dropped for me today, just actually before I hit record on this show. I was listening to Thomas Sheridan. Brilliant content he's putting out there during this lockdown, keeping our heads above water, you know, psychologically and spiritually. Now, he pointed out that he would love to see some like Ryanair taking the Imperial College of London or Professor Neil Ferguson to court and just piling on the political and economic pressure, legal pressure to destroy that fucking institution altogether. And I would agree with him on that. I think that would be the best way to fight the lockdown, because we're all looking to London once again to tell us how to run our lives. And specifically, we're looking at the Imperial College of London. And they are the reason why we're in lockdown. We're still in lockdown because, frankly, I think the control grid is just so shit scared that when the lockdown comes off our backs and we expect to go back to work and find that we don't have work anymore and half of our businesses are gone, we'll fucking storm the Dáil and burn the place down. We need to take down Mordor, you know? We need to storm the castle there, not further diminutize our own government. One thing I will say about what GOD and Waters are doing is that they're doing something, and that's good, I guess. Yeah, that, you know, they're showing people that, hey, this isn't okay. There is actually things you can do within the legal system. Great, lovely. But the gaggle of sheep that they have trolling around behind them, waving their flags and making a fuss in the streets, I don't have much faith in the collective action of people anymore. I don't think that's going to actually go anywhere. But hey, I'm probably going to be told, hey, you know, you're not doing anything, so why are you throwing shit at people who are doing something? Fair enough. I haven't been doing anything in the last few months. I take that criticism. But can we just think about what we're doing? You know, just put a little critical thought into things. Can we be a little more strategic in the battles we pick? You know, have a higher view, you know, a more expansive view of the world, because honestly, the world has fucking changed. It's a sad but inescapable reality of growing older folks that the world that you grew up in is not the world that you are a fully grown adult and a middle-aged person in. And the world just gets more and more alien as time passes. This is just how reality works. Most of the protest movements and political movements of the past, like say in the 90s and somewhat in the early 2000s, have been stuck in the 1960s, 1970s model of protest. The idea of just, you know, getting out there and getting people on board with your idea and asking them to come out and protest with you and speak truth to power. As if power didn't know what it was doing, but hey, that was already obsolete in the 90s and 2000s, because we had movements that stood against globalism, that stood against war and so-called free trade. They were redundant because they failed to realize that globalization was here to stay. That you must grow with globalization. You must move with globalization. It's not the fucking 60s anymore where you had in the American context, the Vietnam War, the civil rights movements around the world, where it was just basically you versus the state. Hey, stop doing this. Stop doing this. Basically was the core message of either of those movements. Stop doing this. Change that. That doesn't suit in the 1990s world. It doesn't suit in the early 2000s world, because you were then up against globalist principalities. You were up against corporations. You were up against super PACs. You were up against unions of countries. Now, today, in the nationalist circles, we are stuck in the 80s model of political parties. We think that it's just the same as it ever was. We build the party in the same way. We build our campaigns in the same way. But really, we live in this post-globalization world. Really. Globalization is finished. It's done. Not talking about globalism. The very definite philosophy of how globalization should occur and how it should be maintained. I'm talking about globalization. We are already a global community. We're already enmeshed, intertwined. You saw that because of how the whole world economy just kind of shat out its internal organs when the pandemic came around. One country went down, and then every other country kind of went down in a domino effect. Even though Sweden, for instance, didn't shut down, we will see negative social and economic impacts in Sweden because we're all interconnected. We are now in the technocracy world, folks, where many vested interests who managed to win the game of globalization are using that accumulated power to enforce a certain way of living through technology. Now, in the same way that the activists of the 90s and the early 2000s should have, went with the process of capitalism and built themselves up into global powers themselves, today, conservatives and nationalists need to recognize that the future war is a war of technology. We've kind of got a handle of that with meme magic and all that nonsense that went away as quickly as it came, with mostly American people and companies leveraging alternative social media networks, etc. We've kind of got a handle on that, but we're not acknowledging it in our strategies. We're not seeing the dangers coming towards us when it comes to the tracking, the tracing, and the control of not just human beings, but objects and money. We're not thinking, God, how can we hack this? How can we make it work for our advantage and steer it towards our political outcomes? No, folks, we're still stuck in the mid-20th century. And it will be the death of us. It will be the death of us. If you want a little more insight into how I think we're fucking up in terms of our political strategies, go to evrn.net, go to shows, the anti-broadcast, and find the show called, what's it called? Political mudslinging. Because that's what we're stuck with, folks. We're stuck playing their games, and we're losing their games. Alright, I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm just rambling at this stage. Have a nice lockdown, folks. You know, try to get outside between 12 and 2 p.m. and get some vitamin D if you're afraid of actually getting a virus. That's probably the best thing that you can do right now. I might sound like a hypocrite, but this is objectively true. You know, don't indulge in alcohol. Don't. Well, they say that smokers get away with not getting the virus because they're smokers for some reason. I don't know, but generally, don't do things that suppress your immune system. You know, eat dairy and meat because they're trying to take that away from us. Strange. They're trying to keep us indoors out of the sun. They're trying to take away our meat. They're trying to take away our dairy. And they're trying to take away the natural exchange between human beings of so-called germs, which are, you know, naturally occurring viruses and bacteria that we need to build and form our immune system with. And wow, I wonder, maybe that's for a reason. All right, stay safe, folks.